I know I've been kind of quiet lately, but, you know, it is what it is. And I did have some things I wanted to post about, so, yeah, I'm going to do I have a couple things coming up, so, it's been a quieter month, and I apologize that I haven't been as, active. I haven't really been reading as much, and I don't know what I've been doing other than like trying to stay healthy. So, yeah, so anyway, that's where I'm at. So what I wanted to do, I had finished the last of the Catriona Ward books I needed to read from her backlog. I mean, she's only got 5 books, but I did want to rate them. All of them are fantastic. I mean, you can't go wrong with a Catriona Ward book. Like, they're all easily, top reads. So, but I do want to kind of go through my favorites, how I like, certain ones better than others. And again, there is not a bad book on this list. So when my number 5 is still easily a 5-star book. So this is the order I liked them in. So if you were like, where should I start? This is what I would probably go in, because this is where I feel like they get better, but I could be wrong. You might have a different opinion. So yeah, so Catriona Ward, again, one of my absolute favorite writers. She's just fantastic. Everything about her writing just is very compelling to me. So the first book is not the first book I read of hers. It was actually second, I believe. But and this is The Girl from Raw Blood, and this is going to sound strange, but this book's very, very good. And the reason it's last for me is because it reads a lot like Frankenstein. Which is amazing, to be able to write in that same vein, because it's set, around the same time period. But there's a decent amount, it's very similar. There's a lot of sort of dissection and, animal studies and research, which was a little gross for me. It was a little too gory. But again, book's fantastic. Very gothic, if you like that kind of gothic horror. And she does a fantastic job. I mean, when you read it, you honestly feel like she was writing in the era rather than, somebody who writes like historical fiction, which often to me feels strange. Like, it feels like somebody is like looking back from a current time rather than sort of being immersed in that era. And this is something I thought she does really well in this book, that it really honestly feels like you're reading a book that was published at the time. Fantastic book. It's just like, that was my least favorite because I love Frankenstein, and so it's good, but I mean, to me, it's like Frankenstein's just so good that I would say that was probably the only complaint I had about it. So the second to last for me, and I mean, I loved Little Eve. So I mean, it's Scottish and like a small island, and there's like feminism and cults and murder and mysteries, and so everything I really like. And there's nothing bad about this. I just didn't like it as much as the others. So easily a 5-star. This is a spooky, also gothic, like set, I think, right after like World War One. So not way back, but also still kind of in that era. And it has it's very similar to The Girl from Raw Blood in terms of, if you really like old gothic horror, if you like those like classics with, like Frankenstein and Dracula and stuff like that, you probably really enjoy this if if it's got the kind of same sort of vibe. I mean, a little more modern, obviously, because it is set in the early 1900s. But a very similar style, same like themes. Very good, a little twist. That's the thing, is The Girl from Raw Blood and Little Eve, I think, have a little less twistiness. So these would actually be good places to start anyway if you're trying to get into Catriona Ward, because as we get further into her books, they get kind of wacky, and like they go in like these very strange directions. I feel like these two are a lot more straightforward. They have some twists, but they're a little more like traditional twists, where things get very out there in the later books. So my middle one is Sundial. Kind of similar to Little Eve in terms of like themes and some of the plot. This is also about like a sort of family, and it's kind of in 2 eras. So it's like back and forth between and I think she does that in Little Eve as well, but it's going back and forth between this woman as a mother and when she's a child, like or a teenager. And it's about this family and these siblings, and is somebody good or bad? And the parents run this like research facility in the middle of the Mojave Desert, where they test, they basically test on dogs to like see if they can train dogs who have been like abused and like reframe their thinking and to kind of apply that to humans. So they're like psychological research. It just has what I really liked about this, and again, Girl from Rubble and Little Eve are more gothic, and I love gothic stuff, but I feel like I don't read a lot of books set in like a creepy cult in the desert. And so this was just kind of new and unique for me. I read a lot of gothic literature, so it has a lot of the same style, it's almost gothic, but again, in a different setting. And I think it's set in like the 60s, 70s, maybe early 80s. But it has that kind of like, it feels like not older, but kind of, obviously older, but a little different than today, but also like still sort of current in a way. So yeah, I really liked it. I love this book. I just thought it was strange, but very good. And also really good book about like family and the family dynamics, siblings and mother and child, and the relationships we have, and it deals a lot with trauma. All of her books in some way deal with like trauma. So if you, what I love about her books is that they're on the surface, you can read them as like just a creepy horror novel, but they're also dealing very strongly with like the psychological effects of, abuse, of trauma, of being ostracized. So she does some like very deep like psychological stuff, and makes a lot of points about people who are different, about women, about relationships, but she does it in this like very compelling, creepy way. So it's, you kind of have two layers, or multiple layers, but they have the two kind of functions of the book. So it's fun and entertaining and creepy, but it also has a lot of like philosophical things that you can think about, and that's why I love her. Also, the writing is fantastic. So my second favorite is Looking Glass Sound, and this is her newest. And this one is very, very weird. And so if you don't like books that like kind of leave you going, wait, what? And trying to piece together what's real, what's not, it's probably not for you, because it is very weird. And one of the things I really liked about it is it actually is like dealing a lot with like the psychology of creation, for artists and writers, and the role of writing, and like, so it kind of reminded me of like early Stephen King, and then like a lot weirder than early Stephen King, because his stuff can be pretty straightforward, but it had a lot of like the same sort of mood. It's set in Maine in the summer, the first part of it is, and there's just a lot of like that same small town vibe. So I really, really love this book. Just very creepy, very unsettling. Same, like I said, same like kind of a layer of the horror and the creepiness, but also a layer of like that makes you really think about a lot of things. All right, and obviously my favorite by her is The Last House on Needless Street. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I've talked about it endlessly, but it's just, I have never read a book that has just been so, like, it just did everything so well, so quickly for me, that I was, like, super into it. I found the writing, like, the actual, like, line-by-line writing, incredibly beautiful. She has multiple narrators, and they are each very distinct, which is something that not everybody can do. It's creepy, there's a mystery, there's a lot of like, you want to turn the page to kind of figure out what's going on, piece all these things together, kind of trying to guess what's happening. And there is like a murder mystery involved, but there's also a lot of, again, the psychological stuff about trauma, about violence, about abuse, and just I mean, I obviously I don't know anything about her personal life, but she does write trauma very, very well. And so, I don't know what her personal experience is with that, but I think if, she doesn't have PTSD, she certainly is very sensitive to it, because all of her books deal with sort of elements of trauma. And I think I read an interview with her, and she said her life was fairly stable, but she also realized that she was on that, because she had kind of a weird childhood, and I think she said something along the lines of what if this went wrong? How easily am I on the knife's edge of having it be very damaging and unhealthy? And so even though she had a good, it could just a few little twists and suddenly things are complicated. So I think she does that very well. She deals a lot with childhood trauma or PTSD, and again a lot of stuff about people who are different, or just being sort of whether kind of harassed or bullied for being different, being ostracized, very unhealthy sort of family relationships, with some really strong family relationships. So there's just so much about her writing. Her writing's beautiful, her books are creepy, they're compelling, but they also stick with you, they're very emotional. So again, 5-star reads. That would be the order I would recommend reading them in, because I think they get better and better, and I also think they get weirder and weirder. That's not the order they were published in, but she has her earlier stuff and then some of her later stuff. So anyway, thanks for watching, and let me know if you've read any of Catriona Ward's books, if you what your feelings are on them, and if you haven't read them, definitely check her out. I'm guessing she's probably not for everyone, because like I said, she is a little weird, but I find it beautiful. I love everything about her books. All right, see you around. Bye.